Nobody prepares you for what really happens when you turn 80. Sure, people mention the obvious things like needing reading glasses or taking afternoon naps, but what about the deeper shifts? The ones that happen so gradually you barely notice until one day you wake up and realize everything feels different. These are the changes that can blindside you if you're not ready for them. The kind that make you think, I wish someone had warned me about this. Today, we're going to walk through 5 hard truths about life after 80. Not because we want to frighten you or paint a grim picture, but because understanding these realities ahead of time gives you power over them. When you know what's coming, you can prepare. You can face these changes with grace instead of shock. We'll explore how your social world starts to feel smaller, how your body begins to whisper warnings you can't ignore, how independence takes on a whole new meaning, how society sometimes treats you like you're fading away, and how finding meaning becomes both harder and more important than ever. Stay with me, because while these truths might feel uncomfortable, they also lead somewhere beautiful. To acceptance, to strength, and to the chance to live these golden years exactly how you choose to live them. Let's dive into what really happens after 80 and how to navigate it all with dignity, wisdom, and your spirit intact. The first reality that catches most people off guard isn't about health or money. It's about people. Specifically, how they start disappearing from your life. Not dramatically, not with big goodbyes, but quietly, like morning mist. The friend who used to call every Tuesday stops calling. The neighbour who always waved from across the street moves to be closer to their daughter. The brother you talked to weekly now only calls on holidays. It's not that anyone stopped caring. Life just pulled them in different directions. You might not notice it at first. Maybe Jim missed the monthly poker game because he had a doctor's appointment. Sarah couldn't make it to book club because her back was acting up. But then Jim's chair stays empty for 3 months, and Sarah's spot at the table becomes permanent. One by one, the voices that filled your days grow quieter. The phone rings less often, and the calendar that used to be full of coffee dates and dinner plans starts looking pretty bare. This isn't anyone's fault. People move away, get sick, pass on, or simply get caught up in their own struggles with aging. Their kids worry about them driving at night, so they stop going out after dark. Their energy isn't what it used to be, so they choose staying home over visiting friends. And slowly, without meaning to, they drift away from the connections that once anchored their days. I think about Margaret, who's 83 now. She used to host a bridge game every Wednesday for 20 years. Same 4 women, same kitchen table, same arguments about who brought the best dessert. But over the past 2 years, one friend moved to assisted living, another developed memory issues, and the third started having trouble getting around after a hip replacement. Now Margaret sits at that same table on Wednesday afternoons, but it's just her and a cup of tea. The house feels too quiet, she told me. I never realized how much I counted on those voices. The loneliness that comes from this kind of gradual loss is different from other kinds of sadness. It's not sharp like grief, it's more like a slow ache. It's realizing that the number of people who truly know your story is getting smaller, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. But here's what you can do. You can decide to reach out first, you can join new groups, start new traditions, make new connections. Because at 80, friendship doesn't just happen the way it did when you were younger. You have to be intentional about it. You have to be brave enough to put yourself out there, even when it feels uncomfortable. And trust me, you have that kind of courage. You've already proven it by making it this far. The second truth hits closer to home, literally. Your body, which has been your faithful companion for 8 decades, starts sending different signals. The little aches that used to disappear after a good night's sleep now stick around for days. The energy that carried you through busy mornings now needs to be rationed carefully. And those minor health scares that once seemed like nothing suddenly demand serious attention. At 80, your body doesn't bounce back the way it did at 50 or even 70. A simple cold can knock you out for weeks instead of days. A twisted ankle from missing a step might mean months of careful walking instead of a weekend on the couch. Your body's repair system is still working, but it's working slower, and sometimes it needs more help than you want to give it. What really catches people by surprise is how quickly things can change. You might wake up feeling perfectly fine, go about your normal routine, and by evening something feels off. Maybe it's a dizzy spell that lasts longer than usual, or chest tightness that doesn't go away, or a pain that's sharper than you've felt before. Suddenly you're in the emergency room, listening to doctors use words like monitoring and tests, and we'll keep an eye on this. The hardest part isn't always the physical discomfort, it's the unpredictability. You can eat right, take your medications, get enough sleep, and still wake up feeling like your body has made decisions without consulting you. Your balance isn't quite as reliable. Your breathing takes more effort. Your hands shake a little more than they used to. And even when you recover from whatever knocked you down, you might not get back to exactly where you were before. I remember talking to Robert, who's 85, and used to pride himself on never missing his morning jogs. Then he caught what seemed like a regular flu bug. Nothing serious, his doctor said, just rest and fluids. But that rest turned into weeks, and when he finally felt ready to jog again, his stamina was gone. I thought I was just taking a break, he said, but my body treated it like retirement. He had to learn to walk before he could run again, and even now his runs are shorter, slower, more careful. But here's what's beautiful about understanding this reality. You start treating your body not like an enemy that's betraying you, but like an old friend who needs more patience and care. You learn to listen to its whispers before they become shouts. You rest when you need to rest, not because you're lazy, but because you're wise. And you celebrate what your body can still do instead of mourning what it can't. The third reality is one of the hardest for independent people to accept. After 80, you're going to need help with things you've been doing on your own for decades. It doesn't happen overnight. It creeps up slowly, in small moments that add up over time. You find yourself avoiding the top shelves at the grocery store. You start asking someone else to change the light bulb instead of climbing on that step stool. You hesitate before backing out of a parking space because your neck doesn't turn as easily as it used to. For people who spent their whole lives being the helpers, the fixers, the ones everyone else turned to, this shift can feel earth-shattering. You might find yourself making excuses to avoid asking for help. You skip the grocery run because the bags are too heavy. You don't mention that you're having trouble opening jars. You pretend you can still read the small print on medicine bottles, even though you're mostly guessing. The emotional weight of needing help can be heavier than the physical limitations themselves. You might worry about becoming a burden, about losing your independence, about being seen as helpless or fragile. These feelings are completely normal, but they can also be dangerous if they stop you from getting the support you need. What many people don't realize is that accepting help isn't the opposite of independence. It's actually a way of preserving it. When you let someone carry your heavy groceries, you save your energy for cooking the meal. When you accept a ride to the doctor, you arrive relaxed instead of stressed from navigating traffic. When you install grab bars in your shower, you're making it possible to bathe safely for years to come. I knew a woman named Dorothy who was 88 and fiercely independent. She lived alone, managed her own finances, and took pride in never asking anyone for anything. But one winter day, she slipped on some ice and couldn't get up. She lay there for an hour before a neighbour found her. She wasn't seriously hurt, but the incident shook her confidence. Her daughter suggested hiring someone to help with house cleaning and grocery shopping. Dorothy resisted at first, but eventually agreed to try it for a month. 6 months later, she told me it was the best decision she'd ever made. "I thought having help would make me feel useless," she said, "but actually it makes me feel free. I can spend my energy on the things I really care about instead of struggling with the things that have gotten hard." That's the secret. Help isn't about giving up your independence. It's about being smart with the independence you have. The fourth truth is perhaps the most frustrating because it's not about what's happening to you, it's about how others start treating you. Somewhere around 80, you begin to notice that the world sees you differently, not just as older, but as invisible, incompetent, or irrelevant. The waitress talks to your adult child instead of taking your order directly. The doctor explains your condition to your daughter rather than to you. Cashiers speak louder and slower, assuming you can't hear or understand. It starts small. A store clerk who looks past you to help the younger customer behind you. A contractor who calls your son to discuss the repair estimate, even though it's your house and your money. A family gathering where conversations swirl around you but rarely include you, as if you're a piece of furniture that's nice to have around but not expected to contribute. This kind of casual dismissal isn't usually meant to be cruel. Most people don't even realize they're doing it. But when you've lived 8 decades, raised families, built careers, made countless decisions, and weathered every kind of storm life can throw at you, being treated like you're not quite all there anymore stings deeply. The invisibility is perhaps the hardest part. You walk into a room and feel like people are looking through you rather than at you. Your opinions get brushed aside with a patronizing smile. Your stories get cut short because someone assumes you're rambling. Your preferences get overruled because others think they know what's best for you. But here's the thing they don't understand. You're not just an old person. You're a walking library of experience, a living witness to decades of history, a repository of wisdom that can't be Googled or downloaded. You've seen fashions come and go, watched neighborhoods change, lived through wars and recessions and social movements. You remember when things were different, and you understand how they got to be the way they are now. So what do you do when the world tries to make you invisible? You refuse to disappear. You speak up, even if your voice shakes a little. You insert yourself into conversations, even if others seem surprised. You share your stories, offer your opinions, and make your presence known. Not because you're demanding attention, but because you're claiming your rightful place in the world. I think about Frank, who's 84 and still sharp as a tack. At family dinners, his adult children would talk about him like he wasn't there, discussing his medications and his driving as if he couldn't hear them. Finally, he'd had enough. "Excuse me," he said one evening, "but I'm sitting right here, and these are decisions about my life. I'd like to be part of this conversation." It took courage to speak up, but it changed everything. Now they include him in discussions about his own life, and the whole family is closer because of it. The fifth and final truth is about meaning and purpose. After 80, you might find yourself with something you haven't had in decades. Time. Real time. No job demanding your attention. No small children needing constant care. No endless list of responsibilities pulling you in different directions. At first, this freedom can feel wonderful. But then, if you're not prepared for it, it can start to feel empty. You might wake up and wonder, what's the point? If you're not needed at work, if your kids are grown and busy with their own lives, if your body limits what you can do, what's your purpose now? This question can be especially hard for people who define themselves by what they did rather than who they were. The teacher who's no longer teaching, the mother whose children no longer need mothering, the businessman who's no longer building anything. With all this time comes space for reflection, and that's not always comfortable. You might find yourself replaying old decisions, wondering about paths not taken, wishing you'd spent more time with people who are now gone, or regretting chances you didn't take when you had them. The what-ifs and if-onlys can pile up like leaves in autumn, and if you let them, they can bury you in regret. But this is also where the greatest opportunity lies. Purpose doesn't have to mean productivity. Meaning doesn't have to come from achievement. At 80, your purpose might be simpler, but no less important. It might be the way you listen when your neighbour needs to talk. It might be the stories you tell your grandchildren about what life was like when you were young. It might be the smile you give to the grocery store clerk who's having a rough day. Sometimes the most meaningful thing you can do is simply show up. Show up for the people who love you. Show up for the community that knows you. Show up for yourself and the life you're still living. Because every day you wake up curious about what might happen, every conversation you have, every kindness you offer, every moment you choose hope over despair, you're creating ripples that spread far beyond what you can see. I remember talking to Eleanor, who's 89, and spent most of her life as a nurse. After she retired, she felt lost. I used to save lives, she told me. Now I can barely save energy for a trip to the store. But then she started volunteering at the hospital, just reading to patients for a few hours a week. Nothing medical, nothing dramatic, just her voice and someone else's loneliness. I realized, she said, that I'm still saving lives, just differently. That's the secret to this stage of life. Your purpose evolves, it doesn't disappear. Your impact becomes quieter, but no less real. The work you do now might not get applause or recognition, but it might be the most important work you've ever done. Because at 80, you're not just living your life, you're showing others how to age with dignity, how to face uncertainty with courage, and how to find meaning even when the world tells you your useful days are behind you. So here we are at the end of our conversation about these 5 truths of life after 80. The shrinking social circles, the body that needs more patience, the growing need for help, the world that sometimes overlooks you, and the search for new meaning in familiar days. None of these realities are easy, but knowing about them ahead of time gives you the power to meet them on your own terms. Which of these truths resonated most with you? Maybe it was the loneliness that comes when old friends drift away, or the frustration of a body that doesn't cooperate like it used to. Perhaps it was the uncomfortable realization that you might need help with things you've always done independently, or the hurt of feeling invisible in a world that values youth over wisdom. Or maybe it was that searching feeling when you're not sure what your purpose is anymore. Whatever struck you most deeply, know that you're not alone in feeling it. These challenges are part of the human experience of growing older, and facing them doesn't make you weak or broken or less than you were before. It makes you honest about what this stage of life really looks like. And that honesty is the first step toward navigating it with grace. The beautiful truth is that even now, even at 80 and beyond, you still get to choose how you respond to these realities. You can choose to reach out when loneliness creeps in. You can choose to treat your body with kindness while still pushing it gently. You can choose to accept help gracefully and offer it when you can. You can choose to speak up when others try to make you invisible. And you can choose to create meaning in small moments, quiet gestures, and simple presence. This chapter of your life isn't an epilogue. It's still the story, and you're still writing it. Every choice you make, every relationship you nurture, every day you approach with curiosity instead of resignation, you're proving that age is just a number and wisdom is ageless. Your voice still matters. Your presence still has power. And your story is still being written one day at a time. Thank you for taking this journey with me today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What's one thing from today's discussion that you'll carry with you? How are you planning to use this insight in your own life? Your experiences and wisdom are valuable, so please share them. Reading your comments always inspires me and helps create a community where we can all learn from each other. If you found value in this conversation, please give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and share it with someone who might need to hear these words. Your support helps me continue creating content that matters, content that speaks to real experiences and real challenges. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.